Here we go again. I know you guys like sitting around the tailgate telling stories with good buddies, cracking cold ones. No matter if it's hunting season or fishing season, well, so does the Outdoor Drive podcast. So we're going to bring you Tales from the Tailgate. This is your host, East Coast Trev, with my boy, Madman Mardik. What's up, bro?
What's up, brother?
Hey, man. Always great to be back, and, especially to have Tales from the Tailgate. This one here is going to be a little bit special, something a little bit crazy. An absolute giant black bear we got on the man, Travis Bailey. What's going on, bro?
How's it going, guys?
How are you, man?
Good to be here.
Hey,
Good to be
here. Appreciate it. So you had the chance to slam down a pretty big black bear, huh?
It was, from my understanding, Massachusetts Wildlife has already told me they do not keep records of black bear, but it is 100% the biggest one that I've seen recorded in the state of Massachusetts.
That's wild, man. Well, why don't we turn this key in the tailgate, bro? Why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and a little about what you do?
Yeah, my name's Travis Bailey. I live up in the Berkshires in Massachusetts. That's Western Mass, mountainous area. You know, we're bordered with upstate New York, so a lot of terrain to cover. And yeah, it's kind of just got into hunting actually in 2020.
Oh wow, so a little bit newer.
Definitely not because of the pandemic. It was just when it all kind of came together for me. I actually own my own business, Keeping It Real Gardens. It's all organic, mostly edible gardens, and also native and habitat restoration. So yeah, it was kind of like one of my biggest things is growing your own food, harvesting your own meat. Obviously, I've been spearfishing, since, I was probably 12 years old. And that kind of guided me in. I'm a big red meat lover, and not being able to harvest my own red meat was kind of a thing that I was trying to get into. So I got into hunting from that, and 2020 was when it kind of got started for me. And like I said, it's something that's become obsessive for me.
That's awesome, man, and especially being a newer hunter, and now to take on what would be probably a record book black bear in the state of Massachusetts is pretty cool. That's definitely pretty cool.
It is. It's been kind of a whirlwind. I kind of got locally famous for a while. This happened in September, so I kind of got locally famous here, as far as the local hunters go and stuff like that, and just like the network. I mean, I've had guys out in all the way in Eastern Mass, like heard about the bear and had got pictures of the bear and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool because those guys come up here to hunt during shotgun season, and I ran into a couple of guys from Eastern Mass, and they're like, "You're the guy who killed the bear?" Holy crap!
That's awesome.
It was just funny. It's like he's like, "I didn't even think that was real. I thought someone was bullshitting."
So with bear hunting in Massachusetts, that's no bait, no hound. So what typically is the style of hunting that you're doing to try and pinpoint where these bears are?
I was on a piece of public land directly adjacent to a cornfield.
Okay.
So the corn is a grain corn. It wasn't. So it was basically, it stood for a while in the field and was just waiting to be harvested. And I mean, there's multiple bears that were just going in there. I mean, like clockwork every morning, every evening. And I just kind of picked the right spot to sit. And I was actually setting up cameras for deer. And so it was, when the bears came in, it was it was like they were just so readable at that time. It was like, you're not baiting, but they're going to a food source just like you would hunt a deer, and that was kind of what I planned the whole situation off of.
So why don't we kick it back right to September, the day that you harvested that bear, or even before, and kind of take us through that story of this bear and where it resulted.
Yeah, so the story goes, I want to go back to 3 years. Because I live basically right off this public piece. And so 3 years ago, I think it was late October. I have chickens, And my one night, my chicken coop got absolutely annihilated. Like it got thrown across the yard essentially, and I lost a few birds. The next day, I was out there in the evening, and someone came in to investigate, and it was the biggest bear I've ever seen. And I kind of considered him the culprit of taking out my chickens that night. And fast forward again to last year in November, I walked outside of my house. I had the birds outside. I walked outside, and about, I don't know, 20 yards away was once again the biggest black bear I've ever seen. Like to the point where it's when your stomach drops through your chest because you're standing 20 yards away from this just absolute unit of a bear. I was actually
Unit.
terrified, to be honest
I
with
love that.
I do.
you. And as the crazy thing was, I wasn't really thinking about hunting bear at that point. You know, it was like I just got into deer hunting. All my focus and energy was into deer hunting. This was November. We're like in mid rut, and I wasn't really thinking about it. Um, I did want to get a little bit of payback and resolve for the chicken situation. I knew that he was back in that yard scoping those chickens again. So so I was like, something's got to stop here. We got to find a way to solve this problem. And anyway, focus went into deer hunting for the rest of that season. He did just to put this one in. He did walk away with like a limp in his back left leg, and I kind of figured, I think it was first season had just ended. I was like, maybe someone tagged him and he got away. I mean, the guy was huge. And so you'd have to make some pretty serious penetration, like however you're hunting him, and it has to be a clean shot. Well, so fast forward to this year, and I don't know where I kind of made the decision. I think it was just the fact that I had a really bad deer season the year before. My freezer wasn't as full as I wanted it to be. Um, I, I actually, to be honest with you, I had never even eaten bear meat. I've heard, of course, the horror stories from the people that I think don't really know, that probably just like to put in their 2 cents. But then I've also heard people say that it's some of the best meat that you could actually get. And so um, I kind of just made the decision that I had time in September, like, with my business, was I kind of, get to pick, pick when I get to take some time off and when I need to work. So I was like, all right, well, I don't want to, take too much time in September. I got a lot of things I got to finish up. But if I do have the time in September in that first season and my cameras are already out looking for deer, well, I might as well see what the bears are doing. And I'll buy a tag. Why wouldn't I, right? I'm just like giving some money to the conservation aspect of it, and if I don't ever use it, so what? But if I'm out there and just happen to have an opportunity, well, I might as well take it. And and then I put that camera out. It must have been like late October, and I'm not kidding you, man. This bear like started moving through that area out to that corn. So this camera was probably 100 yards away from the corn or so, and he was moving up through the swamp to come out to the corn every night and every morning. So he would go out there right about dark, like right when the sun went down, and then he would come back out right about when the sun was coming up. And he had done this almost like the week leading up to opening day for bear. He had done it the same pattern almost every single day. Like I had him on there almost every single day. And I was like, man, I was like, this seems like I knew he was big, right? You see how big he is. I did not know how to gauge a bear specifically to say like this bear. I was thinking like this bear could be maybe 400 pounds. Like this, you know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
thinking in my head, like, people always say like, 400-pound bear is a giant bear, right? And I'm thinking like, I don't know how to really like estimate this weight. So when I'm seeing him, I'm thinking like, he might be 400. Yeah, who
Mm.
knows? So no real idea. Um, but he shows up on camera. I mean, he eclipses anything. There was like four other bears using that camera, or going past that camera, and to out to the corn. And so it was obviously a really good spot because that's where they were all funneling out through. But you could see the size difference between all the bears. I mean, you could see like the ones that were just they look like cubs compared to this thing. And he just had to say, like, he had a fat ass, dude. This bear just had the hind, like, his two hindquarters were just massive, dude.
He was
Like,
thick with
he
two
just,
C's.
Dang.
dude. I mean, he got a big old ass on him, dude. So it was just like he would waddle on by, dude. And it was just, he just stood out. And I was like, if he keeps this up in the season opens, then I'm gonna jump in to this spot and I'm gonna just give it a run. I don't know how it's gonna go. Like I said, I had no real experience with it, but I was like, it seems like it's patternable and it seems like I might be able to make something happen. And so I was kind of chalking it up with the homies and I was like, what do you guys think I should use? Because obviously we can use a muzzle loader, and I think you can actually even use a rifle, and you can use a bow. And I was like, I wanted to use the bow because I felt like if it was that patternable, I could get him with a bow. But if he came by, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to. I heard some of the stories about like bear hunting and like obviously hit something like that size with a bow, and then you got like the bear cry, you know what I mean, like the death cry before they go. And I was like, man, I kind of want to make it quick and efficient because it's my first hunt. So it's like I think the muzzle loader's always been like my go-to for some reason. It's like,
Hmm.
it's a disciplined shot. You get one, make sure it's placed right, and like, it just to me it was like it's a comfortable piece of equipment to use. And so I figured I was going to go with the muzzleloader so I don't mess this up. So I went out there on September 12th, which was, I think it was 3 days after um, opening day, which was the ninth. Yeah. And I actually set up in a saddle, set the platform up. The platform was only up maybe 10 feet off the ground. There's a bunch of hemlocks so that it goes from swamp to hemlocks, and then it kind of goes up like a small little ridge system. And it's about 100 or 75 to 100 yards to the corn where it clears up. And so I set up in the saddle just to stay under some like the lower hemlock boughs and with visibility, because if you went up too high, you could only basically see straight down. And so I set up knowing that like this funnel was pretty solid and that if anything came through, at least I had like distance of visibility. And so I got in there at like 2 o'clock. So I set up really early. So, it's like 75 degrees out. And it was right around 6 o'clock. And I hear this noise coming from the cornfield. And it's the tractor. And I'm like, you gotta freaking be kidding me. This farmer is about to plow down this corn. The one day that I sit out here to to hunt this bear. And 6 o'clock was prime time because 7 o'clock was sunset. So I was like, we're in prime time. We're getting close. And I was pissed, man. And he sure enough comes down the line and he runs down the back row of the corn. He's coming basically from my left side and he runs the back row. And then I hear him do a loop. And as he's doing the loop, I'm so defeated at this point mentally because I'm like, hunt's over, game's over, nothing's coming out of this swamp. It's pointless. This guy's I don't know what he's doing here now, but he's gonna be here forever. And he goes to do this loop and he comes back through the second row. As he's doing that, I'm already taking my tether off. I'm getting out of the tree. And I look up the hill. There's a small, like, little hill. It probably goes about like a 50-foot incline to the field. And when I turn around, I see this freaking monstrosity running out of the cornfield and coming down the
Oh.
hill. So homeboy was already in the corn. He
Uh-huh.
was sleeping there or doing whatever it was he was doing. So he was already in there. And this dude in the tractor actually chased him out and basically just alley ooped me. And I turn around and I see this thing coming down the hill. And I'm not kidding you, man. He was beelining it right for my tree. And he's about 50 feet away and he's waddling down this hill. I mean, my heart sank through my butthole. Like I was just like I didn't even know, like I couldn't even think. I like had to react and I was like, all right, what am I gonna do in this situation? I got this farmer who's actually now coming across with his tractor, almost completely parallel with me. I can actually see the top of the tractor and I could see this guy's head in the, like as he's driving through. And I'm like, man, do I take this shot? This thing is going to run right in front of me, if not just take me and the tree down. Because it was that close. Like he was coming down this hill diagonally right in front of me. And he actually once, and I just made the decision. I was like, I'm never going to have this chance again. Like this is, I felt like this was it. This was the moment. I had to take it. So, pop the safety off. And as soon as he ran in front of the tree, he basically crossed over to public land, and then he just got slightly quartered away from me, and I took the shot at like 12 yards. And
Wow.
actually, the funny thing about the shot was when I looked down, I have a scope on it. When I looked down the scope, it was just all black. So I actually had to take my head and bring my head back, just and actually shoot like with my eyes lined up above the scope because I couldn't even look at like through the scope.
Because it's just
So
completely
I ended up
black.
shooting, yeah. And when I hit him, I knew like the shot was pretty well placed. And when I hit him, he grunted. He like made a grunt, and then he just picked up the speed. And I couldn't hear shit, so I couldn't. I could hear him running. I hear the tractor at this point. I look up to see if the guy in the tractor heard the shot. Well, he's got like some headphones on. He doesn't. He's probably listening to some music. I don't know what he was doing. He did not have any idea that I just shot like 50, 75 yards away from him, a muzzle loader of all things too. So he has no clue what's going on.
He thinks
And
Cheech and Chong is up in the tree. There's a giant smoke.
right, the big old smoke cloud, and so I'm trying to listen to this bear. Like the bear picked up the speed and it starts crashing through, and there's like a bunch of honeysuckle before you get into the swamp, so it gets real thick. And I couldn't see him. He actually went out of sight, and I'm listening. I'm trying to hear if he like goes down, and I couldn't hear anything because the tractor was going. So by the time he was out of sight, I had no idea like what exactly happened. I was like, all right, well, trying to just put all the things together in my head after this. I mean, like I said, it it just happened so fast. Like it was within 30 seconds, the trigger was pulled. From me seeing this like freak of nature coming down the hill, and then all of a sudden me pulling the trigger was 30 seconds. So like I didn't even have time to like believe me, I've gotten buck fever before. I didn't have time to do this. Like
It's
it
probably
was
almost
actually
better that
perfect.
way.
It was 100% better that way. It was 100% better. And so he had taken off, and so like 10 minutes goes by, and the suspense was killing me. I was like, I gotta get down and at least look where the shot was, because I couldn't see blood. Actually, I couldn't see blood right away. And so I jumped out of the tree. I walked over to where I shot him, and sure enough, there was absolutely no blood. And I was like, there's no hair, there's no blood. Like there's what this is crazy. Did I miss? Like he made a noise. I figured I made contact, but I'm like, was it a bad shot? So all those things started going through my head. The good thing is that being that this was a real kind of like a lowland area, like right before it goes up to the ridge into the corn, that the ground was really soft. I could actually see where he started digging in and started to drive forward. And so I kind of walked up to that trail, and I started walking with that trail, still not seeing any blood, which was crazy. I still wasn't seeing any blood. And I got about like 20, I want to say like 25 feet. And I kind of went wide off the trail a little bit just to get through where it really got soggy. And man, I looked forward and I could just see this mountain of black fur. Just, I mean, he was balled up at like, what was he? Probably 35 yards, right?
Wow.
I know. I wish it was 20
And you
so I
have the
could say he
muzzle
didn't go
loader
20, but
too.
what's that?
Having the muzzle loader too, so if he's still alive, you got one shot.
Right. So I did before I got out of the tree. I'd
Yeah,
already reloaded
of course.
and so the funny thing is that you say that it was like I actually like so I saw him laying there, and like just seeing him laying there actually scared me again.
Yeah, right.
Of course.
So I actually walked way wide,
Mm.
came all the way around from his front side. So I went completely like maybe another 50 yards all the way around, and then came up from inside the swamp, like to come up from his front side so I could at least see his head.
Absolutely.
And I was, yeah, I didn't even want to just walk straight up to him because I was like, I want to make sure this dude is down before I creep into that like 10 foot like point of no return. And sure enough, yeah, he was expired, completely done. It was, and I just once, dude, it was like emotional to see something like that on the ground. Like I man, like because I have nothing but respect for everything
Mm-hmm.
that I hunt, and like, and the harvest is the most important thing to me. And so it was like to be that close to something like that and to be able to put your hands on it, and like I said, I'm like I've only been hunting for a few years, and I only like killed four four deer and a turkey. So it was like it was a pretty serious moment for me to like, I mean, just he was a king in his world, you know. So it was like it was pretty special and emotional at the same time.
Did he have the limp?
I was
So
gonna
is
ask the same thing. Yeah.
it the
Right.
chicken coop?
So that was my precursor to where I'm going to get to, but
Okay,
we're going
sorry.
to, yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
So, so he did not have the limp. So the limp was gone when he waddles, dude. He's so big, he just waddles.
Yeah.
So it's like, you really can't tell if he's walking normally or not because he's just so mad.
Just
He's like, his
swaying in
body
the
just,
yeah.
yeah, his body just waddles around. When he picked up the speed, I was actually surprised at how fast he ran.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Because, so he was like, he started moving like a train after I hit him. So it was, yeah, anyway, those were his, his final 35, but he moved pretty quick through it. And, and so, yeah, man, it was a special moment. And, all right, so this gets us to the point where I realized, what the hell did I just do?
Right.
What the hell did I just do? And how am I gonna get from what I just did to like how are we getting this thing out of here?
You're
This
not,
is
And like
like
so I
you're not
text
just
my
gonna go
buddy,
grab the jet
yeah,
sled
yeah.
and pull him up the hill.
This is
dude. Also funny because I when I started making phone calls, someone did bring a sled.
like it's gonna help.
So someone did show up with a sled. They're like, let's get this thing out of here."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go get that
Like,
guy with the tractor. Wave the farmer down.
Yeah.
right, right. I don't. I heard he's a dick. I haven't actually communicated with him personally, but I imagine that like he'd shake my hand for all the corn I saved.
Yeah.
But
Facts.
regardless, it was like, yeah, that's when it all sank in, and I was like, holy crap, what did I just get myself into? Like this, I don't even know. I mean, we can get to the field, but I have no idea how we're going to even move this thing. So I, called the first guy I called was he's kind of like my hunting mentor up here in the mountains, Jay Rind, and I call him Sensei Jay because he's like the guy who teaches me the way of all of his arts of understanding deer hunting and turkey and so he's always the first person I call, and I said, Jay, I think I just shot the biggest bear in the woods. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I need you to get out here. I need all the help I can get. And so I knew that wasn't going to be enough. So I called my dad after that. And I said, Dad, I need you to come help me figure out a way that we're going to move this thing. I'm like, it's a giant. And everyone, of course is like, yeah, I'm sure it's, good sized bear, whatever. And then from there, he called my neighbor and, who was also a hunter, Mike Ford, and he said, "All right, yeah, we'll come check it out. We'll see." So I met him at the entrance to the public park area, and we walked back, and of course, bring these guys back to this bear, and everybody just stops and like speechless, and just they don't like not even like celebrate it like congratulations. Everyone's just like, "What the fuck, man!" like, like nobody even said like way to go, dude. Everyone was just like, what the fuck are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, what did you do?
I feel like you're
I
like
told you. I told you.
I feel like you're
I
like
told you it was big.
I feel like you're the neighborhood pyro kid that just lit the whole neighborhood on fire, and you're like, well, what do we do now? Like,
How far is this bear from the truck?
Right. So where I had expected to pull it through public would have been, I mean, we're talking, 500 yards. There was
Yeah,
like, I mean,
not
just to even
super
get
deep.
to an access point,
Yeah.
to get to an access
Yeah.
point, like just would have been like a half mile.
Yeah.
So to get like if we wanted to go, what we ended up deciding to do was that we were going to try to come up through, we're going to come down through the cornfield, regardless of obviously like so the farmer, we didn't get to communicate with the farmer, but we were going to go for it anyway. And well, like in Mass, you can actually hunt private land without having permission.
It's a free state.
If it unless it's posted, it has to be
Yeah.
posted properly. But we figured we you know obviously it's our neighborhood. We know everybody. Small community. Like you know, someone has questions, like talk to them. But we figured that was the best route. We decided at that point that we needed machinery, heavy machinery. We talked about tractors. we talked about we
Tanks,
talked about
skid
dump trailers.
steers.
We figured
Helicopters.
like we gotta
National Guard.
right. So what my buddy Mike Ford had was he has a like a 500cc quad with a winch on the front, and I have a dump trailer. So we ended up at that point I gutted the bear, and I mean, you want to talk about guts, man? Holy freaking cow, dude! Like there, like the belly on this thing was ridiculous. I don't. It took me so long to gut this thing. It was outrageous. I mean, just trying to roll it, just move it into position to like gut it was almost impossible. Even with like two people, it was just like you can't. There was just no way to position it. So it's like I'm basically. I think at one point I was shoulders deep in this thing, like in its body cavity, trying to pull guts out. Like, it was
Jeez.
wild, man. I was covered in blood. It was a massacre. So anyway, we got the quad in there. We got the dump trailer on scene. We get this thing hooked up to the quad. Uh, to backtrack, yeah, it was Jay Ryan, Sensei Jay, who showed up with the who showed up with the sled, and thank God for him.
Put one
But
quarter in it.
yeah, and he was just like, "What the yeah, dude? I don't even know if that sled could have pulled a quarter, like, especially a hind quarter." And anyway, so yeah, we ended up we hooked this thing up to the quad, tied it off to the back of the quad. Remember this, the ground is pretty soft too. Like we're not in an
It's
area
early
where it's
season.
hard ground. It's like it's kind of swampy. Like you're already in an area where it's going to be hard to get traction. And we started trying to rip that thing. We couldn't even budget, man. 500cc quad couldn't even budget. And so I have to I'm sitting on the front of the quad, like trying to jump up and down, trying to get this thing to go, and it won't go. So we ended up having to winch from every single tree. Like we went 20 feet to the first tree, and we started winching and driving four wheel, just gassing it. Got to that one, had to winch to the next tree, four wheeling and gassing. Dude, it was
Wow.
like
Oh.
it was wild. We eventually got to a point where the ground was hard enough to where we could actually like move it when we could move it just a good enough distance, but we finally got to that point. And then we got it we got it up into the back of the cornfield, and that's where we had to winch it up into the trailer. And holy crap, man, it was a mission. I think we got out of there at like 10:30. I shot the bear at 6.
I was gonna
So
ask what the time frame was
yeah,
at that point. Yeah.
we got back to the house at 10:30, and it was
Wow.
6 o'clock when I shot the bear. So it's all
So
said and done. We moved less than 100 yards in in like what 5 hours.
wow. That's
So yeah, it was
nuts. So
yeah. So
what was the overall weight of it on a scale
right.
gutted?
So the next day I took it to and remind you that this is like September. It's like 75 degrees out, like it's cooking. I took it to I had to take it to a gravel yard where they had a certified state certified scale, and just to weigh it, because like none of the local areas were going to weigh this thing for me. I was like calling Mass Fish and Wildlife, and I was, hey, do you guys like want to certify this thing? Could this be a record? And they're like, of course they don't get back to you anyway, but when you finally like make enough phone calls, you get a hold of somebody, and they're like, oh, we don't have anywhere you can really weigh it. And I ended up taking it there. So I drove it up onto the scale, and it was like 10. I can't remember what the total weight of the truck and the trailer was, but we ended up offloading the bear. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like trying to do the math on the difference of like, oh, like hope this thing's like, 450, 500 pounds or something like that. And the girl comes back to me with the numbers after we offloaded the bear and then reweighed the truck and the trailer. And she was like, yeah, it's a difference of 620. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. I was like, this scale isn't accurate. How accurate is this scale? And she's like, it was certified a week ago. And I was like, you gotta freaking be kidding me. So like what would be like the difference if it was off? And she's like, it would never be off by more than like 5 or 10 pounds, is what she said.
So
And
620 with no guts in it.
it was 620 dress. So that was when I was in complete disbelief. I was like, this is like we all kind of knew like the enormity of this thing, but we
Yeah.
didn't really nobody wanted to put a number on it because you're just like you just really don't know. I know for a fact how hard it was to move around and how hard it was to because that was what Mike was saying. He was like, when we couldn't even pull it with the quad, he's like, I realized this thing was way above even what I thought it weighed. And
Wow.
so anyway, we I ended up calling Mass Fish and Wildlife and talking to one of the biologists because I was asking, I was like, is there like a record that you guys have? And they're like, we don't keep black bear records for weight in Mass. I don't know why they don't do it. That's just what the biologist told me. So I gave him all the data. I actually started telling him the story, and he actually didn't believe me. He was like, "This bear's not that big," and so I sent him all the data. Like I emailed him all the data, and he was supposed to get back to me about it. He hadn't got back to me about it. Like to this day, I don't know. It was really bizarre to be honest with you. Like they didn't really have that much of an interest in it, which I thought was which is the state. Like they're trying to keep tabs on like they're what they have like in the state,
Yeah.
which is crazy because it's like when you harvest a deer, they expect you to, put down how many tines it has and like they want to count
Mm.
each side and like they want to know like a general like weight of it. So it's kind of it was strange that like they didn't really have that much interest in it.
So
Um
you would figure at 620 pounds, and you figure that had to been what 150 to 200 pounds worth of guts in that thing. Like,
So it was so the what he actually told me he was like if that bear was 620 dressed, he's like you're looking at 14% to 18%
okay,
is what the guts weigh, which he estimated at. That means that bear was in like the 715 to 730 live weight, which is
wow.
like so we're talking like a 715-pound bear, like if
Huh.
live weight.
That's a
What
If that
what was green scored the skull on that thing?
So the skull is still drying. Like it
Okay,
has to dry for 6 months before you can. The
Six,
taxidermist that I
60
brought, because
days.
I did. What's that?
60-day dry period on a bear skull.
Oh, I thought it was 6 months.
Six
That's what.
sixty days.
Oh, okay. Well, I need to go send that. Oh, well, then I'm sending it in. I honestly,
what?
dude, I'm pretty new to it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
no,
didn't
no, no,
know.
for sure. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
60 days, 60-day dry period and a lot of people don't know this, so we're talking about it, so it's a good thing, but
Right.
60-day dry period on antlers and skulls. So it's a,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, it's ready to go. The taxidermist Justin Gladue, he does Gladue taxidermist up
Mhm.
here in Lanesboro in the Berkshires.
Did he green score
Awesome
it?
dude. He did a rough on it, like a
Yeah.
rough, and it was like I think it was like almost it was about 22,
Ooh,
22
Wow,
inches
Booner.
ooh, that's a
was
Boone and
was the
Crockett
skull.
bear.
I think it's
Wow.
Yeah,
21 the
right, yeah.
Booner.
So that's what I'm waiting to send it into
Okay.
was Boone and Crockett.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yep.
Are they 6 months? They might be 6 months. Is that correct
Hmm,
or no?
I don't know.
Me neither.
I'll
Oh,
have to.
okay.
We'll have to look when we get off the
Is it
Listen,
podcast and find
possible?
out.
I know for a fact it's 60 days for antlers. Is it definitely 60 days for
I thought.
skulls,
I
too?
thought it was. Yeah, I definitely thought that it was.
I did too, but I could see skulls maybe being different.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
right.
don't know. We'll have to look up the
So
information.
when we skinned it, it was the bear was 7 feet long, like 2 inches, 7 feet long, 2 inches. The square when it was squared up, it was about 7'8". So 7 feet 8 inches squared, which is like grizzly bear stuff. Um,
Did you do a full mount on it or did you rug mount it?
I'm rugging it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing the rug.
That's a
Yeah.
giant rug.
I'm pretty excited for the rug situation, but
Yeah.
I would too.
yeah,
They're both very expensive, no matter what.
the actually, yeah, I don't know how much the full mount would have been. I just don't know if like I don't know what I would do with a full
I
mount to
don't
be
know if
completely
you
honest
might
with you.
not. You got French doors.
I think the rug makes so much more sense because like basically I'm just gonna cover a wall with it.
Yeah, for sure.
You,
So it's gonna have the claws attached to it still, so
Hmm.
it's gonna be pretty epic, I think.
That's
you
awesome.
would
Um,
have a hard time getting a full mount through some of the doors in your
Yeah.
house.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
that's a
That's what I
big
mean.
bear.
Like eventually it's going to be like your Ram back there. It's just going to be like something someone's like going to throw away in the trash, I feel like, when I'm dead and gone. Obviously I would never get rid of it, but when I'm dead and gone, someone's going to be like, "You want this for 50 bucks?" Like so it's like the rug just seems to me like I don't know, it's easier it's just easier to move around.
No, absolutely,
And
and I think that's a great way to represent that bear. Because it's so
oh
big and
yeah.
it's an
Yeah,
amazing piece, and
it's gonna be I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah.
that's so
So
cool.
anyway, I mean, this is like I said, it's a bear of a lifetime. I mean, I ended up getting an article in the local paper about
Hmm.
it. So that was pretty much my claim to fame on that. I mean, like I said, I thought it's kind of bizarre that like, because that the state just doesn't really acknowledge much
Hmm.
about it. I did send in a tooth sample. I'm definitely interested to see like what this tooth comes back as,
Absolutely.
especially I mean, the taxidermist Justin was telling me like he shot a bear that was like 400 pounds and the tooth sample came back and they aged it out like at the time he was like in his 20s. He was like
Yeah.
saying the bear was as old as he was.
Hmm.
So I mean I'm really intrigued on seeing how old this bear is,
That's
and
amazing.
then I'll definitely reach out to you guys when
Yeah.
I find out all that detail and get that skull measured officially.
That's
So
amazing. What an
it's
amazing story, and it's
yeah.
an incredible bear. It's once in a lifetime. I mean, it's
Right.
no question.
First sit. I mean, that was
Hmm.
my first bear sit ever. I did. So I do want to put this in there. The limp the year before when I
You've
had
been
to take a
waiting for
week off of
Yes, me
this.
work.
too. I've been waiting too. I
I
wasn't gonna let you get away with it. I promise. I
I
wasn't.
right. I had so I did so look, go back into the whole processing. I had to take a week off of work to process this bear. I had multiple fridges on hand, and I had coolers, multiple like 150 quart coolers that I had iced in, and like this was the processing took forever, man. Like just chopping this thing apart. I got off its hindquarters, there was about a layer of fat that was over 7 inches thick. 7 inches thick of bear fat on this thing. I put it down on the table, dude. It looked like a whale. Like it was like whale blubber. And
Oh,
I saved all that fat, a ridiculous amount. I was cutting in that back left ham, and I pulled out a 22 slug in pristine condition, like didn't even hit bone, just went right through the fat cheek and then into the meat and then stuck there. And I pulled that thing out of one of his hams. Um, and I saved it, but whoever it was the year before shot that bastard with a 22 round right in his left cheek.
just to
And it
pest
Just
didn't
like
him to
a
get him out of
tick
the
bite.
out of the yard, dude. Could you imagine?
there's no doubt that this bear like just did whatever he wanted.
Oh,
When I rendered all of the fat from this bear, so I basically have to buy a new freezer for the meat that I have,
oh
and
my.
I gave a ton away. I rendered every little bit of that fat from this bear. I use it for cooking. I've made chapsticks with it. I've used it to waterproof my boots, my leather boots. I've used it for leather. I mean, the stuff is gold. It's as good as gold,
Mm.
and I rendered every little bit of it. I have quarts and quarts and quarts for days, and yeah, man, it was a crazy harvest. There's just so much resource from this bear, and I've come to that conclusion. Oh, and I pulled my slug out of it too, and the reason why there was no blood was because that slug went straight through him, double lunged him, and actually went into his left scapula and stuck there. I pulled
Mm.
that slug out of his bone. So that 50 cal muzzleloader could not pass fully through his left scapula. It was stuck
At
in the
12
bones.
yards.
At 12
At
yards.
12 yards. Yeah.
Jeez.
So it was, yeah. So, and I saved both those slugs. Yeah. So I have both those.
Wow.
That's pretty wild. I couldn't believe that I recovered that. But yeah, man. And like I said, the resource is going to go on for years. Like it's something that, like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to empty that freezer of this bear. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to hunt a bear next year because I still have too much damn meat.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
and I eat. That's the one thing I want to say, and I want this is because it has a weird stigma on bear meat. Bear meat is literally the probably one of the better meats I've ever had. It's the problem that I find with it because I cook a lot, like I do a lot of cooking, and venison I love because you can eat like I like rare meat, like rare red meat. I like it
mhm.
rare. Um, Venison you can cook with that rare center. Bear you cannot do that with because of trichinosis. You have to have it at like 165 for a certain amount of minutes. So personally, if you're doing like burger or something, or you're doing steaks, I don't really like bear's not fantastic for me because you end up having to kind of put it like well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so venison personally for steaks and burgers and things like that. But for bear with like roasts and slow cooked preparation, tacos, anything that you're doing is like, man, dude, it's better than beef. It's
Mhm.
better than beef. And I'm not, dude, this bear, as old as it was, I don't care how many trash cans this dude tipped. I don't care how many, like,
Chickens
we had
it
a
ate.
weird situation where
Chickens and eggs.
we had a weird situation where there was RIP a girl found in that public area. Uh, I don't know if this bear got a piece of that, but it that meat is man, that meat is absolutely epic,
That's
like
awesome.
absolutely epic. And I don't know if I'll ever want to shoot a bear that big again. I mean, I certainly it's just crazy. It's a wild. It's you got to be prepared, 100% prepared. You can't go into that unprepared. And I learned the hard way, dude. I
That's
learned the hard way
amazing.
big time.
That's
But
such
bear
a
meat
cool
is epic,
story.
man.
Did
It's absolutely epic.
by any chance after you killed the bear, did anyone come out and say they also knew of the bear or they were planning on hunting that bear? As far as you know, it was just
Yeah.
you or what?
No, so that leads me to kind of my next that kind of what I was going to go into about is that people have seen the bear, like they had witnessed the bear in that area, and everyone was like, "Man, that's a giant bear." But also, a lot of people aren't hunting bears anymore. Like it's just kind of a thing that like nobody's really doing, and
Mhm.
I feel honestly that this is the reason why these bears are getting so massive anyway, is because they don't really have a lot of hunting pressure on them. And and I kind of did it in payback for my chickens. And the fact that like I wanted to make sure that I had meat in the freezer before deer season came around, so the pressure was off. Because deer seemed to elude me a lot more than this bear did. But and good note on that, I did take the fat gristle and feed it to my chickens, and man, they got their sweet revenge.
That
they
is
got they got their
amazing.
sweet revenge,
I
dude.
love it.
Oh, they were like, this one's for Bertha, this one's for Margaret.
I
Yeah,
I
love
feel
it.
you. Dude, I have chickens, man, and I mean, I just love them to death, man. Like they're the shit.
yeah. It was funny when the local newspaper when they printed the article with me, and the article pre-staging my article of the bear was bears breaking into chicken coops locally. It was an article on that, and then it like staged into like this guy shot at 620. And of course, there's like all these people up here too. It's like specific towns and stuff where like, oh my god, don't ever put a dead bear in the newspaper again.
Oh,
Like,
jeez.
well, my child, this is a family paper.
Oh,
It's like you don't feed your family, you go to the supermarket. That's right. So,
yep. That's the
it's
way
a,
that it goes, though, man. But hey,
right.
he's done. It's 620 pounds, plus
It is.
7 feet. And it's an amazing bear, an amazing story. It's
Yeah,
absolutely
man.
incredible, man. Congratulations on that bear. That's a once in a lifetime
Appreciate it.
bear, and you obviously deserved it. You said you needed meat in the freezer because the deer season's been tough. You got plenty to go around now. Now you can focus on a
Right.
good
There's
whitetail.
there's no doubt. Yeah. No, yeah, I had to buy a new freezer.
Yeah,
So like
exactly.
I got meat in the freezer and then I had to buy a new one.
That's awesome. That's
So
awesome.
So I'm not complaining about that. But no, yeah, man, it was quite the experience, quite the whirlwind. I'm definitely going to continue to actually. A few days later, there's another bear in there that's probably in the realm of like that 500-pound mark. So there's another
Upcomer.
absolute like prehistoric bear
That's
that's
awesome.
stomping around in there.
Well,
So
by the time that you're ready to shoot another bear, he'll probably be around the 700-pound range too.
yeah, no doubt. Well, I do intend on trying to fill a tag next year, so I don't. But like I said, I better be damn prepared if it's going to be 500 plus.
Yep, for sure. Well,
But
Travis, we
yeah,
we appreciate you jumping on with us, man, and telling your tales. And we hope that you can get another bear or another big buck, and we can do another tales with you in the future.
oh my God, I want a big buck so bad, dude.
You'll get it. You'll get it.
Dude,
We'll give you the luck of the podcast.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's always a good
right?
thing. So
Yeah,
hopefully that
dude.
pans out for you.
Doing these 8 mile days, man, and just covering territory. It's like, and just these deer, just God, man, it's hard to get them up here. It's
Yeah.
fucking hard.
Well, like we say, man, killer's gonna kill. And for everybody else, thanks for taking the ride right here on the Outdoor Drive.